All right. Well, first, thank you everyone for coming out to the culture show. It was an honor performing. Uh, Thanks to all the dancers and everyone who participated, and everyone that made it a great show. Special thanks to the culture show chairs that made it good. Um, and thanks for coming out to elections. I'm glad we have the honor of closing out elections here. So I'm Kenny Dow. I'm a junior, currently a rising senior. I'm majoring in economics, minoring in finance.
Hi guys, I'm Andrew. I am a sophomore rising junior and I'm majoring in computer science and philosophy.
So this is a brief outline of what we're going to go over today. So the first thing is BSA involvement. We're going to go over our journey through BSA, all the way from when we started up to now and how it's led here. Then we'll go over its significance to us, and then we'll talk about why we're even running for president and what's like our real motivator for that. And the thing we'll talk about, of course, are areas for improvement. We'll go over what we plan to improve as presidents and with the responsibility that's given to us. And the last thing, our event proposals. So we'll go over a few events we have in mind that we want to implement into BSA next year. So this is some pictures from year one. So I came in to BSA during COVID year, and not much was going on during that year. And I will say by the end, I was unsure about continuing with BSA. And I think one of the major reasons is because just no events were happening. So that raises the question of why did I stay? And I think the answer to that is because I really just wanted to see what it would be like the next year when things were quote unquote back to normal. So that was really my main motivator to staying, and I wanted to experience it as a normal BSA the next year.
So my first year was also fresh rep last year. I came into BC really wanting to explore AC and more specifically about BSA. So I applied to fresh rep, and when I got accepted, I was really excited to be on board and just be a part of that. But unfortunately, my first semester experience wasn't really what I had hoped it would be. And so at that point, I was kind of considering dropping BSA for a little bit just because all it was really doing was causing me stress. But I decided to stick it out for a little bit because during second semester, the experience got a lot better thanks to our president at the time, Big Viv. She really helped me through, she really talked me through what really the BSA experience was like. And she also helped train me for the treasurer position. And she really just got me reinvested into BSA as a club.
So this is my second year. So my second year, I was a honor rep. And for those who don't know, the role of a honor rep is to outreach between clubs and plan events. So this was when times were pretty much back to normal, right? Normal school year. And this was some of the most fun I had this year. So I'm glad I stayed in BSA this year. And I think one of the things that made it really fun is that I was experiencing a lot of new things. I think that makes you feel young, right? Experiencing new things and keeps your life fresh. So I was really happy with BSA this year, and I decided to stay in BSA if you want to keep that chain of new events going. And then the third year, so that's now. I'm treasurer with Andrew, co-treasurer with Andrew. So this year, I kind of knew what to expect. So I think when you know what to expect, the thing that makes it fun is that you can make improvements and you can continue to add things to make it better. I think that's what keeps it fresh. So I was really looking to do that as treasurer since I had more leeway with the budget and with planning events. So that's how I kept burnout from happening. I think if you're always trying to improve, you know, it's tough to burn out because you're always looking for the next thing that you can do better at. So that's my outlook on that. And then Ed, you want to speak to your?
Yeah, so for me coming into this year, because last semester, the spring semester of last year was a lot better. I came in really just wanting to keep the momentum that VSA had, just have it keep going up. And so I felt like treasurer was, because Viv had kind of funneled me into that position. I really felt like that was from a position that I could help VSA grow and just continue to support the club grow to what I would want it to, how I would want it to see in the future.
Yeah, so why does this matter? Well, this year, like I mentioned, I was looking to make marginal improvements, because I had leeway with the budget. So going into next year, now as president, you had to oversee basically the whole process and how it works from start to finish. So my goal there is to really refine things and really preserve what we have, but also make the changes necessary to make the club better. And we'll get into that on the next few slides, but that's really the overarching theme, is just preserving, but also making the marginal changes so that way they accumulate and the events, the people in the club become better as a whole.
So yeah, so these are just a couple of our areas for improvement that we were looking towards. These were already things that we felt were already doing very good. It's just some marginal changes that we would make, like Kenny mentioned. So for retreat, we felt that the time frame we had it in this year, around like early October, was a very nice time because it wasn't too busy. The weather was very nice, so we would like to keep it around that time. Different for a location, we had it in Camp Burgess this year. It is a very nice location, but it is also very large, and that made it a little bit difficult to keep it organized. It was also quite a heavy drain on our treasury. So ideally, next year we could try and find somewhere that is as high quality as Burgess, but it's just a little smaller scale, just to make it a little bit more controllable. We also want to implement more class diversity into the retreat. For this year, it was mostly underclassmen going. There weren't many upperclassmen that had signed up, so we definitely want to try and widen our spread towards more upperclassmen so that we have an equal balance, and that will also kind of promote connections between upperclassmen and underclassmen. We also want to try and establish a clear structure for the retreat, so once again it stays organized and on schedule and we don't fall too behind on things.
I'm sorry, next big event is culture show. So we'll put these two up here for now, because these are the things we want to focus on, and it's what most of our budget goes towards. So with culture show, just based off initial feedback, we obviously have to plan sooner. With planning sooner, we'll get more practice, and yes, we'll a lot more refined being in sync. And obviously we have to get choreographers on board early. And then the last thing really that I got as feedback from the audience is that they want the acts to be longer. So for example, some people were only in one dance, and then they were on and off the stage within 2 minutes. So we start earlier and we have longer acts and a little bit simpler dances. I think that will satisfy the longer acts, and we'll be able to keep the quality on the festival.
Just one more thing about culture show. With the time frame that we had, we are kind of sandwiched in between the KSA, CSA culture show and also Showdown, which makes it a lot more difficult to get choreographers and performers just in general. So if possible, we would like to try and find a different time frame for culture show. And then these are just some event proposals that we have as of right now. So our first one is the BC Vietnamese International Student Experience / Bonding. The goal is to basically just try and create a community and connection between Viet American and Viet International students on BC, because we feel that these two communities, although they're kind of all related under one thing, there isn't too much crossover or overlap as there is.
The next one we have is an intercollegiate potluck or Olympic event. So this would be across schools, and we would have them come to our campus, and then we would design some type of Olympic activities. And then also a potluck after that. The next one is a Southeast Asia formal. So I think for this one, I mean, you guys have heard about ALC Bowl, so it'd be similar to that, but everyone would bring some type of dessert from their culture. Be like a Friday night, 7:30, 9:30, and then we can go from there to a different like that later in the night. The next thing, and you're gonna touch on that,
yeah.
please.
So another one of our kind of concerns with VSA is that we don't often, when we do collab with AC clubs, it's often either with all of AC in general or just a few specific clubs, like PSBC and CISA are often two that we collab with a lot. So we want to try and get an individual collab with each and every one club in AC. Right now, the planning ideas for what actually with each club we're gonna do is later, but we just want to put that out there.
And finally, the last thing, one thing that I don't think we've ever really done is talk about the music, and talk about Vietnamese music, and its role in culture. So I think a collab with the music club, would be great. Just learning about Vietnamese music, maybe even learn how to mix music and make tracks as well. Using aspects of Vietnamese music would be something new that we're adding to the club. And with that concludes our presentation on that. So, we're open to any questions now. Yeah. Wait. You guys ask me.
So the role of co-president, I would say it's very rewarding, but it's also very stressful. There are times when, especially when mixing with school, like as rising senior, rising junior, your academics start picking up and like internship and other job opportunities and all that. All those things when combined with the role of president, they really add up. Especially for your mental health. And because of that, we have presidency to be split into co-presidents. And you guys are meant to complement each other and be there for each other. So how would you go about handling when someone's lacking off, someone's having a heartbeat, you can't cover for a specific task that they're assigned to?
Yeah, I would say, once it's in my to-do list, it gets done. I'm really confident in myself with that, and I'm a pretty organized person. So I think if I need to be there for Andrew, which just working this year, we work very well together. I think it's really not going to be an issue for us if it's getting things done. That being said, you mentioned burnout as well, just like needing a break. I'm going into this with 100% effort, and with my 100% effort, I think I'll get things done. So to be frank, I don't really see it as big of an issue for either of us.
Yeah, I kind of share the same response as Kenny. I feel personally, just from this semester alone, I would say that this semester has been like one of my toughest, just like academically and both for the club and mentally. It's just all kind of been jam-packed, but I do feel that I've gone through it pretty well. And as Kenny said, we do work very well together, and I do know that we both have each other's backs when we need it to. And
okay, I have two questions. The first is, what would you guys say is each of your each other's like strengths and weaknesses?
I think one of Andrew's biggest strengths is getting things done in a timely manner. So right when you ask him, to do something or if you need a favor, he's very responsive and he gets it done well, which is something you need as co-presidents. You need someone to be there to handle, situations you might not foresee or put out fires when you need to.
Yeah, for Kenny, I would say his greatest strength is his willingness to just buckle down and like I know like if I need to, if I just ask him like, oh, like this was when we were around making the budgets, we were making budgets during summer break. I personally didn't really know how to start approaching it, so I texted Kenny, and at this point, like this was our first time really working together. And I texted Kenny like, oh, are you able to like make a spreadsheet or something like that? And he was like completely willing to, made it super quick. It was, and it worked perfectly, and it made the process of making the budget super easy for everyone on board. And it just, yeah, so I know if I ask Kenny that he'll really be able to buckle down and really give a really good product.
And what about the weaknesses?
Weaknesses, I would say, sometimes, Andrew gets caught up a little bit in the details, and like doesn't look at the overall like big picture, but to be honest, I prefer that weakness, because as treasurer, that's necessary. You need to be caught up in the details, so, to me, that, I mean, at least as his role in treasurer, that was one of his strengths. So I don't really have anything else to say on that.
I think for Kenny, it's more of a he's kind of hard to approach for a lot of people sometimes. So I hope that because of, it's not anything about him personally, but just it's just he looks very intimidating, you know. So I hope that especially when freshmen start coming in, if they aren't really if they don't feel like approaching Kenny, I'm hoping that I can kind of give like more of like an initiation, I guess, and then slowly like it makes them more used to the club just interacting with us in general.
The second question is, a lot of people have said for the co-president position, usually there's someone who has to be the bad cop and kind of like make sure things are getting done, and then one person who's kind of like the good cop. Do you think that was the case for you guys? And if so, who do you think would be the good? Who do you think would be the bad cop, or do you think this is not the case?
Yeah, I don't really think that's the case. I think when you come on board, you know your role, you know your responsibility, and we're all adults here. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of accountability for when you come on board. So maybe you might need to gently remind someone about their responsibilities, but you know, I would like to think everyone's mature enough to handle it, especially if they're making a decision to commit X amount of hours a week to VSA, attend events, meetings, etc. I don't really see that. I don't really see us playing the comp game.
It just doesn't really seem necessary if everyone's able to complete their tasks. It shouldn't be.
Well, you, the people you would want.
So for all of the values that need to be at the contributions and everything, personally, I think the biggest thing that makes BSA and makes BSA as successful as it is the joyousness of the club and how happy the environment around it is. I think Paul and Julie this year have done an excellent job of presidents of being welcoming and joyous. You two on board this year are probably the two most stoic personalities and are often more quiet. So how do you think you'll be able to bring that same amount of joy to the club that those two have?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm not Paul and I'm not Julie, so I'm my own person. That being said, BSA isn't just us two. It's combined. It's a combined club. There's 16 board members. There's also gen members as well. Sure, we might be the face of it, But when they look at you at the culture show, right, they don't see, or they see Joseph and then they make the association with the VSA. And, I think that goes to say that you guys are just as important as us and everyone has a role to play. So if, you're bringing that happy, energy that you're saying that I don't have, then, that's that's on you, So I think everyone has a role to play in, I think people will step up if necessary.
I think in terms of like, within board, I feel like, well, we can't really expect it to like be the same as it was. I do acknowledge that one of my weaknesses is that I'm often not as like emotional, and I do want to try and work on that just in general, for both board and Jen.
Yeah.
Given that VSA is a cultural club and that the position of president is more like just leading the club, what does the Vietnamese culture mean to you guys? How do you guys plan to implement your own experiences with culture?
For me personally, Vietnamese culture, I really didn't really like I said, I really didn't find it until I came here. So for me, VSA culture, it's half like kind of also like this VSA, but also what I've learned from here. So like because of that, my goal for VSA is to like maintain the club and improve it where I can and just see it rise as much as I can, because since I don't have that much like outside like exposure to it, I feel like it's better suited for somebody else to get their opinion on what we should put into an event that represents Vietnamese culture like that.
Yeah, I think Vietnamese culture is a lot about family, and being connected to others. And I think that's what VSA here embodies. I think you make great relationships with the people at events or et cetera, what it might be. So really, I would say it's creating, a family within VSA like you have at home.
Regarding the DSA, past history, outside of this year, was, I was on board, right, but I've heard like there's like a lot of like confusion and like relationships built within board. What would you do to make sure like something doesn't happen?
One thing me and Kenny were talking about was bringing back one-on-ones. I know that was a part of like our process for board for a while, and then we stopped doing it. I definitely think, especially because this year our incoming board will be more Gen members, since we're not retaining as many from last year. I definitely do think that one-on-ones, just encouraging them is going to be really important, just to build the cohesion between all of us so that we can really run like efficiently.
No, well, my thoughts are in line with what Andrew said. And I want to leave it with
Caroline.
So such a large board, you're gonna have a lot of personalities and different. And with that comes clash. You clash and people are conflict in their lives. You two as presidents will be correct. The board and then members want them to the people advice. How will you deal with the challenges based upon their clash? How would you deal with conflict if they?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the major things is setting expectations at the beginning. Just setting out, this is what we expect from you as secretary, and this is what you can expect from us. I think just being clear from the jump, communicating that is key. And if two members clash, like I said, we're adults, so I think we can work it out maturely, and in a way that preserves the culture of the club and the integrity of the board.
I do agree with what Kenny said. I think if the two people that are in the conflict can't really get it down themselves, then maybe me and Kenny, one of us steps in, tries to be like a middleman and resolve it. But if worse comes to worse and it's just not really salvageable, then it would ultimately just be like I said, me or Kenny just being a middleman between the two in case they need to communicate and they're just refusing to. But hopefully it just never comes to that.
What's something about Paul and Julie's presidency that you hope to apply next year when you're gonna be presidency?
Yeah, I think, retreat was definitely a good idea. I enjoyed it a little bit more than I expected, so, by that, I mean, I had never been on a retreat, so I didn't know what it was gonna be like. And it exceeded, what I expected it to be like. So we're definitely keeping a retreat. We'll just make some minor changes, to it.
For me, I think definitely just I want to try and maintain some of the energy that Qual and Julie have brought on to both like the board and just in events with general members. Because they just have an energizing presence. Just like I would ideally like you come to a VSA event, you see those two and you're like, oh, you're just feeling better already. And it's like, no. Fine.
It's kind of like a mix between Joe's question and then Jason's question as well. So Joe mentioned that you guys are two of the more like stoic people, the more fire people on board. And Jason asked a question that you guys, many of us would be part of the VSA's culture in VSA. As like the face of VSA next year, how do you guys plan on improving or working towards like that family idea? Or working on more like reaching out to other classrooms and creating that bond when you guys are in.
Yeah, I think the answer is in your question. I think it's just reaching out to, underclassmen and really, making those relationships. I mean, that's how I got reeled into VSAs because, someone reached out to me and spoke with me one-on-one, instead of just like at an event. So, I will say that that's definitely part of the responsibility of the president is just reaching out and establishing those connections, which I'm more than willing to do, as a running for the position.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's just like a weakness that we kind of both have, and it's something that we are aware of and that we need to act on. So. Yeah.
So as a rising senior and as a junior and with Kenny having one more experience on board, do you think this will affect the dynamic you guys will have as co-presidents? And if so, how will you address this to make it into an effective and productive relationship for yourselves and the board?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it's going to affect it at all because we've worked, as co-treasurers this year and, I would like to say we've worked, very well, efficiently, but also effectively. And I think that will continue into presidency because we know how, each other works and, what we expect of each other, when it comes to responsibilities within the club.
Yeah, I really look up to Kenny as like a mentor, but he like when we work together, I'll like throw him ideas and I know what he's telling me is like as an equal. I know that he's like treating me like honestly, he's telling me like what's real and he's just being completely honest with me and there's not really a unevenness of like balance power there. So I do trust that both of us will be able to work together.
So, during our board meetings, sometimes, I'm sure other board members do this, sometimes you run a little long, sometimes you get dressed in public at hand, or like, it's not as serious as one would need for a meeting. I'm not saying like you can have fun, like, well, what is something you, do or like if you go to a board meeting?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things we do end up talking about at the board meetings can just be pushed to the next meeting. I think to your point, to make the meetings more efficient is we just cut out the small talk in between, and do that all at the beginning. And then when it's time to focus, we'll focus on, and that's why I think that we should set that expectation early on before you come on board, so that way you know what meetings are like, and you're ready to go. There's a time and place for goofing off and having fun. But when we sit down to get things done, we gotta get it done within the hour. And that's just how, at least I like it done. I'm sure Andrew's the same.
I agree with Kenny, just the whole setting expectations from the start about how we want the meetings to run.
Yeah, so when you guys were talking about the two main events, one of the things you addressed, Andrew, was class diversity and how especially at a lot of the events this year, and Juan Julie also mentioned this to me as something they were thinking about or worried about, was that there was heavy overrepresentation of underclassmen, especially freshmen, at a lot of our events. And you address that as a sort of negative. Do you think that BSA could pivot towards gaining interest from underclassmen, as that would be the future of the club? Or do you think that BSA should strive for an even amount of every class within all these events?
I definitely think that most clubs in general will usually have a more underclassmen skew, because underclassmen are just coming into college and they're looking for new experiences, so they're joining all the clubs that they want to and stuff like that. So ultimately there will be less upperclassmen than there are underclassmen. So we can't really target a perfect even distribution. But the reason we want to try and get more upperclassmen is, like I said before, those connections between upperclassmen and underclassmen. Hopefully someone finds a mentor, stuff like that. It's just all, yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, so we'll just wrap it up. Wait, could you go to the next one? Oh, okay. Everyone here, did you guys get to scan the check-in form and everything?
Password.
Okay. So he's gonna pull it up, so you just scan it and just to check in. And then there's the password 20A for when you want to vote later on tonight.
Place 20 and then.
Yeah, so just final reminder that password is 28. And well, first, thank you all of you guys for coming. I know we ran 30 minutes later than we expected to, but we'll also have a recording of all of elections. And so we'll pop it onto our Instagram so that those who could not make it or couldn't make the final parts of it can still take parts in elections. Just a reminder that we'll release the voting tonight or tomorrow, and then they're due by Wednesday, before midnight, and then we'll release, we'll announce the results Friday morning at the latest. But thank you everyone for coming. Good job to all the candidates. We wish you guys good luck. Please scan the form if you haven't already.
20A.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
So
I know, you guys like this.
y'all were